The morning Vivian Blackwood finally stopped her car began like every other Monday. Her schedule was packed from the moment she opened her eyes. A board meeting at 9, a billion-dollar merger before noon, 3 interviews before dinner. Every hour had already been claimed long before the day began. To anyone watching, Vivian looked like a woman whose life was perfectly under control. She was the formidable CEO of Blackwood Global, one of the most influential companies in the country. People admired her discipline, her composure, and her relentless drive. What they couldn't see was the photograph tucked inside the leather notebook resting beside her. It showed a smiling young man standing on the deck of a sailboat, sunlight catching his wind-swept blonde hair as he laughed at someone behind the camera. Adrian Blackwood, her only son. 8 years earlier, his car had been discovered at the bottom of a rocky cliff outside Montauk. The crash had been devastating, but despite weeks of searching, no body was ever recovered. Eventually, everyone accepted the same heartbreaking conclusion. Adrian was gone. Everyone except Vivian. She had never held a funeral, never allowed anyone to clear out his room, and never stopped searching. Every lead she had followed ended the same way, with another dead end. Yet somehow, she could never silence the quiet voice telling her that her son was still out there. Outside, Manhattan moved with its usual urgency. The black sedan rolled through midtown traffic, while executives hurried toward towering office buildings. Tourists stopped to photograph landmarks they'd soon forget, and street vendors called out to anyone willing to slow down for a cup of coffee or a hot breakfast. Behind the wheel, Graham glanced into the rearview mirror. "Looks like Fifth Avenue's blocked," he said. "I'll cut across 52nd. Vivian barely looked up from the acquisition report in her hands. "Fine." The car turned the corner. She wasn't paying attention to the streets outside, not until something caught her eye. Her gaze drifted toward the window almost absent-mindedly, then her entire body went rigid.
Stop!
A horn blared behind them as another SUV swerved in frustration. "Ma'am?" She didn't answer. Across the street, beside the entrance to an underground parking garage, a homeless man sat quietly against a concrete wall. He looked to be in his early 30s. His beard was thick and uneven. His coat had been patched so many times that its original color had long since disappeared. A weathered backpack rested beside him, along with a paper cup containing only a handful of coins. But Vivian wasn't looking at the man. She was staring at the pendant hanging around his neck. A deep crimson stone wrapped in hand-carved silver, one of a kind. She knew every curve of its design because years earlier she had sketched it herself, before commissioning a master jeweler to create it as Adrian's 27th birthday gift. There had never been another. Her breathing caught. "No." The whisper escaped before she realized she'd spoken. Graham followed her gaze. "What is it?" Vivian couldn't take her eyes off the pendant. "It belonged to my son." Silence filled the car. After a moment, Graham asked quietly, "Are you sure?" She turned to him. "I watched the jeweler make it." Before he could respond, she opened the door. The 2 security agents assigned to her detail stepped out immediately, instinctively moving ahead to assess the situation. The homeless man noticed them approaching, but he didn't run. He didn't even stand. One of the guards stopped a respectful distance away. "Sir," he said calmly, "we'd like to ask you a few questions." The man looked up. "About what?" Vivian stepped around the guards before either of them could continue. Her eyes never left the pendant. "Your necklace." Instinctively, his hand covered it. "What about it?" "Where did you get it?" He frowned. "I've always had it." "Who gave it to you?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "I don't know." Vivian stared at him. "You don't know?" He slowly shook his head. "I wish I did." Only then did she truly study his face. Different eyes, different jawline, different voice, different build. This wasn't Adrian. She felt the fragile hope she'd barely dared to hold begin to crumble. And yet, the pendant was unquestionably Adrian's. That impossible contradiction kept her standing there. "May I see it?" she asked quietly. The man hesitated before answering. "No." One of the guards instinctively stepped forward. Vivian stopped him with a raised hand. The stranger never broke eye contact. "I don't know where it came from," he said softly. but it's the only thing I've ever been certain belongs to me." Something in his voice made Vivian pause. It wasn't fear. It wasn't defiance. It was the quiet certainty of someone clinging to the last piece of his identity. Her tone softened. "What's your name?" He looked away. "They call me Noah." "Who does?" "The hospital." Vivian frowned. "What hospital?" "I woke up there, a long time ago." He searched for the words. "They said someone found me unconscious near the coast." "Do you remember anything before that?" He gave a sad smile. "Some days I barely remember yesterday." Then he looked back at her. "I don't remember who I was before I opened my eyes." Vivian felt something tighten deep inside her chest. 8 years. Exactly the same amount of time Adrian had been missing. Coincidence? It had to be, didn't it? She slowly crouched until they were at eye level. "If I can prove that pendant belonged to my son," she said gently, "will you come with me?" Noah studied her for a long moment. "You think I'm connected to him?" "I think you may be connected to the night he disappeared." His fingers brushed the worn silver edge of the pendant. "I've spent years trying to find out who I am." A faint, tired smile crossed his face. "You're the first person who's ever stopped to help." He nodded once. "Okay." Vivian helped him to his feet. Neither of them noticed the black luxury sedan parked across the street. A man inside had watched every second of the conversation. He quietly lifted his phone. "She's found him." Silence answered from the other end. Finally, he said one last sentence. "We're out of time." The sedan eased back into traffic and disappeared. Vivian never saw it. She had no idea that one impulsive decision, simply asking her driver to stop, had just awakened a secret someone had spent 8 years trying to bury. Vivian didn't take Noah to her penthouse. She knew better than anyone how quickly rumors spread within the Blackwood family. If she arrived home with a homeless stranger, questions would begin long before she had any answers. Instead, Graham drove them to a discreet townhouse owned by Blackwood Global. Officially, it served as a private residence for visiting executives. In reality, it was one of the company's best-kept secrets. Only a handful of trusted people even knew it existed. As the wrought iron gates closed behind them, Noah looked out the window, taking in the quiet streets and manicured gardens. "I've never been somewhere this quiet," he said softly. Vivian turned toward him. "Do you trust me?" A weary smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I got into a billionaire's car after knowing her for 5 minutes." He shrugged lightly. "I think that answers your question." An hour later, Noah stepped downstairs after showering. The thick beard was gone. His hair had been trimmed, and the clean clothes Graham had arranged fit surprisingly well. Without years of dirt, exhaustion, and neglect hiding his features, he looked younger, healthier, stronger. For one impossible moment, Vivian found herself searching his face again, hoping she had somehow overlooked something. But the truth remained unchanged. He wasn't Adrian. The realization stung just as sharply as it had on the street. And yet, she couldn't explain the pendant. She set 2 mugs of coffee on the dining table and motioned for him to sit. "You said the hospital gave you your name." He nodded. "They called me Noah Hale." "And before that?" He slowly shook his head. "Nothing." "No family?" "I don't remember one." "No photographs?" "No." "No identification?" "They found me with these." He emptied his pockets onto the table. A battered lighter, 3 worn dollar bills, a faded transit card, and finally, the pendant. Vivian picked it up with almost reverent care. Morning sunlight spilled through the windows, catching the deep crimson stone and setting it ablaze. There was no doubt, it belonged to Adrian. She carefully turned it over. Hidden along the inner edge of the silver frame, exactly where she'd instructed the jeweler to place it years earlier, were 2 tiny engraved initials. A B. A detail no one else should have known existed. She looked up. "Where were you found?" "I don't remember." "The hospital must have told you something." "They said, somewhere near Montauk." Her breath caught. Montauk, the same stretch of coastline where Adrian had vanished 8 years earlier. Coincidence was becoming harder and harder to believe. Vivian rose from her chair. "I need to make a few calls." The calm business executive returned almost instantly. Within minutes, her assistant had cancelled every meeting on her calendar. Her legal counsel was instructed to clear the entire week. Everything else could wait. There was only one thing that mattered now. Finally, she made one last call. The woman answered on the first ring. "Elena Cross." "I found something." Silence. Then, "What kind of something?" Vivian glanced toward Noah. "I found Adrian's necklace." A longer silence followed. "Where?" "A homeless man has it." Another pause. Then came the only response Vivian expected. "I'm on my way." Less than an hour later, Elena Cross walked through the front door, carrying a worn leather case. She had spent 23 years as one of New York's most respected homicide detectives before retiring to become a private investigator. In all that time, only one case had ever remained unresolved: Adrian Blackwood. She stopped the moment she saw Noah. Without saying a word, she slowly circled him, observing, measuring, comparing him to countless photographs stored in memory. Finally, she stopped. "No resemblance?" Vivian nodded. "I know." Elena stepped forward and offered her hand. "I'm Elena." "Noah." "You remember nothing before waking up in the hospital?" "No." She looked directly into his eyes. "Are you lying?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "No." The room fell silent. Elena studied him for several more seconds before turning back to Vivian. "I believe him." The three of them gathered around the dining table. Elena opened the thick case file she'd carried with her for the past 8 years. Page after page revealed the investigation that had never truly ended. Photographs, search maps, police reports, witness interviews, insurance records, phone logs. Every unanswered question was preserved inside those folders. Noah leafed through the photographs quietly until one image made him stop. It showed a smiling Adrian standing beside a sailboat, sunlight dancing across the water behind him. Noah stared at it. His expression changed. Vivian noticed immediately. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. I don't know." "You recognized something?" "I think I did." His breathing became uneven. The room seemed to fade. For the briefest instant, he smelled salt carried on the wind. He heard waves crashing somewhere nearby. A man's laughter echoed in the distance. Then, darkness. The sensation vanished as suddenly as it had come. Noah gripped the edge of the table to steady himself. "What happened?" Elena asked. He closed his eyes, trying desperately to hold on to the memory before it disappeared. "I heard..." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Waves." Vivian leaned forward. "What else?" He searched for something, anything that would return. There was a face, or maybe there wasn't. A voice, or perhaps only the wind. The memory slipped away like water through his fingers. Finally, he opened his eyes. "I'm sorry." Elena quietly picked up her pen. Without another word, she wrote a single word in her notebook. Coastline. That afternoon, Vivian received a call from Blackwood Global. "The board meeting has been moved to tomorrow." "I won't be there." "The directors are asking why." "They'll manage." She hung up. Business could wait. For the first time in 8 years, she finally had a lead. Across Manhattan, inside the executive office on the 39th floor of Blackwood Global, Victor Blackwood watched security footage from outside the parking garage. The screen showed Vivian helping Noah into her car. Victor replayed the clip. Again, again, again. Finally, he pressed pause. The pendant was visible around Noah's neck. Victor slowly leaned back in his chair. "So," he whispered, "you survived." He opened a locked drawer. Inside lay a faded envelope addressed in Charles Blackwood's handwriting. For Adrian. Victor stared at it for several seconds before closing the drawer again. Then he picked up his phone. "Find out everything about the man Vivian brought with her," a voice answered. "And if he remembers?" Victor's eyes hardened. "He won't." Miles away, Noah stood alone on the townhouse balcony. The evening breeze carried the faint smell of rain. His fingers rested on the pendant. Then another fragment struck without warning. A woman, dark hair, paint-stained fingers. She was crying. holding his face between her hands. Her lips moved. This time, he heard the words, "Promise me. If anything happens, never tell them your name." Noah's eyes flew open, his pulse hammered. He didn't know who the woman was, but for the first time in 8 years, someone from his forgotten life had spoken to him. Noah barely slept. The woman's voice echoed through his mind. Never tell them your name. It wasn't just the words, it was the fear behind them. She hadn't been worried someone would find him. She'd been terrified someone already knew he existed. The next morning, Vivian was already waiting downstairs. Elena stood beside her, holding a slim folder. "I've confirmed Noah's hospital records." Noah looked up. "And?" "You were admitted to Montauk Memorial Hospital 8 years ago." Vivian's eyes met his. The admission date was 36 hours after Adrian disappeared. Silence filled the room. Elena continued. "You were found unconscious on a beach 4 miles east of where Adrian's car went over the cliff." Noah's stomach tightened. "So, I was there." "You were. But I don't remember why." "No." Elena slid a photograph across the table. It showed a rescue team standing beside a stretcher. The image was grainy. The man's face was hidden beneath blankets. "This is the only photograph taken that morning." Noah stared at it. Nothing. Vivian unfolded another photograph. This one was different. It showed Adrian laughing beside a fireplace, wearing jeans and a navy sweater. Around his neck, the pendant. Noah instinctively touched his own. It was his. Vivian nodded. "I gave it to him on his birthday." "Then why was I wearing it?" "I don't know." It was the question neither of them could answer. Later that afternoon, Elena drove to Montauk. If someone had made mistakes 8 years ago, she intended to find them. Her first stop was the hospital. Most of the staff from that night had retired. One nurse still remembered. Margaret Ellis, 70 years old, sharp memory, sharper instincts. She agreed to speak over coffee. "I remember the John Doe." Elena leaned forward. "What made him memorable?" Margaret didn't answer immediately. "He shouldn't have been anonymous." "What do you mean?" "He was young, injured, and someone should have been looking for him." She stirred her tea. "But no one ever came. No family? No police asking questions? No missing person report?" She frowned. "It never sat right with me." Elena's pen stopped moving. "You're certain?" "I'm certain." As Elena stood to leave, Margaret spoke again. "There was one thing." Elena slowly sat back down. "A man came into the emergency room that evening." "What man?" "He had cuts on one hand. Said he'd been in a minor accident." Margaret's eyes narrowed as she searched her memory. "But he wasn't interested in treatment. He kept asking about the unidentified patient." "What did he ask?" "Whether he'd regained consciousness." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing." Margaret shook her head. "Hospital policy." "What happened then?" "He thanked me and left." Elena's pulse quickened. "Did you ever see him again?" Margaret looked out the diner window. "Months later." "Where?" "In a business magazine." She looked back at Elena. "He'd been promoted." "Promoted?" "To Chief Operating Officer of Blackwood Global." Elena didn't need to ask the name. She already knew. Victor Blackwood. Back in Manhattan, Victor closed the blinds in his office. His chief of security entered. "We've been watching the townhouse." Victor didn't look up. "And?" "The man hasn't left." "What about Vivian?" "She's cancelled every board meeting." Victor slowly closed the file he was reading. "She's digging." "It appears so." "How much does she know?" "We don't know." Victor walked toward the window. Below him, thousands of people crossed the streets without ever looking up. 8 years. 8 years of careful planning. 8 years of making sure every loose end stayed buried. Now one necklace threatened all of it. He turned. "I want every surviving record from Montauk reviewed." "Already started?" "Witnesses?" "We're identifying them." Victor's expression darkened. No. Finding them isn't enough. The room fell silent. I want to know who they've spoken to. That evening, Noah wandered through the townhouse library. He wasn't looking for anything. He simply couldn't stop moving. His eyes drifted across framed family photographs lining the shelves. Business dinners, holiday parties, award ceremonies. Then one picture caught his attention. Adrian, standing beside an older man with silver hair. Charles Blackwood. Noah stopped. Something shifted inside him. His breathing slowed. A strange warmth spread through his chest. Not recognition. Familiarity. He reached toward the photograph. The instant his fingers touched the frame, another memory crashed into him. A man's voice, deep, calm. One day you'll understand why I couldn't bring you home. Noah stumbled backward, his vision blurred. He grabbed the bookshelf before falling. Vivian rushed into the room. Noah! He looked at her, shaken. I heard him. Heard who? I don't know. What did he say? Noah swallowed hard. He said, one day you'll understand why I couldn't bring you home. Vivian felt the color drain from her face. Those weren't the words that frightened her. It was the voice Noah had described. Because she'd heard that voice every day for nearly 20 years. It belonged to her late husband, Charles Blackwood. Vivian didn't speak for several seconds. You've heard that voice before? Elena asked. She nodded slowly. My husband. Noah looked between them. The man in the memory? Charles Blackwood. Vivian walked to the bookshelf and picked up the photograph Noah had touched. This was taken 6 months before he died. She stared at Charles's smiling face. He never said those words to Adrian. She looked back at Noah. So why would you remember them? No one had an answer. The next morning, Benjamin Rhodes arrived. He had served as the Blackwood family's attorney for nearly 15 years and knew every legal battle the company had survived. When Vivian explained everything, he listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked only one question. Has anyone outside this room been told? No. Good. Because if this is what I think it is, someone has already realized you've reopened the past. Benjamin closed the folder and looked at Vivian. I'd also like to speak with Samuel Pierce. Charles's former solicitor? Vivian asked. Benjamin nodded. He handled Charles's private affairs for decades. If Charles ever trusted anyone with personal matters outside the family, it would have been Samuel. Benjamin requested access to Charles Blackwood's personal archive. Most of it had been sealed after his death. The records were stored beneath Blackwood Global headquarters inside a climate-controlled vault. Only 3 people could authorize access. Vivian was one of them. An hour later, they stood inside the archive. Shelves stretched across the room. Financial records, private journals, contracts, correspondence, everything Charles had chosen to preserve. Benjamin pulled on a pair of gloves. We're looking for anything connected to Adrian's disappearance. For nearly 2 hours they searched. Nothing. Then Benjamin stopped. This is odd. He pointed to a gap on one shelf. Dust outlined the shape of a storage box. The catalog number remained. The box didn't. Vivian checked the inventory. Box C118. Benjamin scanned the records. It was logged here 13 years ago. And now? No removal record. Vivian frowned. So it vanished. Benjamin nodded. Which means someone with authorized access took it. Benjamin stopped beside another cabinet. Charles had a habit of recording his thoughts before writing important letters. Vivian smiled faintly. I'd forgotten about that. Benjamin ran a hand across the shelf. If any of those recordings survived, they may tell us more than the documents. Back upstairs, Graham met them in the lobby. You should see this. He handed Vivian his phone. The screen showed security footage from the previous night. A maintenance worker entered the archive level shortly after midnight. His face stayed hidden beneath a cap. He spent 6 minutes inside, then disappeared. Benjamin's expression hardened. That wasn't maintenance. No. Vivian zoomed in. The man wore leather gloves, professional, prepared. He knew exactly where he was going. Across town, Victor sat alone inside his office. One of his associates entered quietly. They searched the archive. Victor didn't look surprised. Did they find anything? No. A faint smile crossed Victor's face. The box? Destroyed. Victor leaned back. It should have been destroyed years ago. The associate hesitated. There is one problem. Victor looked up. The archive cameras recorded someone. Victor's smile disappeared. Whose idea was it to leave the cameras running? They were supposed to loop. They didn't. No. Victor stood. His voice remained calm. Find out why. After weeks of relentless investigation, Elena Cross and attorney Benjamin Carter uncovered the truth hidden for 8 years. Hospital records, missing evidence, witness testimony, and Charles Blackwood's private letter all pointed to one man. Faced with overwhelming proof, Victor Blackwood finally admitted that he had confronted Adrian the night he disappeared, demanding the letter that revealed Nathan's existence. Adrian refused, and Victor chose to conceal what happened after the accident, convincing himself he was protecting Blackwood Global from a scandal that would destroy the family's reputation. In reality, he had been protecting his own power. The board removed Victor as chairman and chief executive officer, and Detective Laura Bennett placed him under arrest for his role in covering up the truth. With the conspiracy finally exposed, Noah's true identity was finally revealed. His real name was Nathan Moreno, Charles Blackwood's illegitimate son and Adrian's half-brother, the very family Adrian had spent his final days trying to find. Honoring both Charles's final wish and Adrian's sacrifice, Vivian welcomed Nathan into the Blackwood family, not as a replacement for the son she had lost, but as the last living piece of him. Months later, Blackwood Global established the Adrian Blackwood Foundation to support children growing up without families. Nathan declined a position within the corporation, choosing instead to lead the foundation, dedicating his life to fulfilling the promise his brother had died protecting. Some people inherit fortunes, others inherit a promise. Nathan Moreno inherited both a family he never knew and a legacy built on truth, sacrifice, and love.